It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
My name's Mike.
And this week we are gearing up for the Deadpool and Wolverine debut. I keep calling it Wolverine and Deadpool. I guess it really doesn't matter. It's Deadpool 3.
It's funny. I keep doing that too, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's just something about it. Maybe it's because there had been a lot of Deadpool trailers, but we can even talk about it here because we'll have a little bit the Wolverine on his podcast from Spotify that you love. So we can talk about that a little bit. But it will come out this week, so that's exciting. The other big news from Marvel is that Avengers 5 and 6 may see the return of the Russo brothers, and we're going to talk about the scales of that, the balance that they could. I guess the internet is bringing to this because it's not all good news, it's not all bad news. But that we don't have it here. But next week in San Diego Comic-Con, so we may have more news there. The Acolyte wrapped its first season on Disney Plus from Star Wars, and we're going to review that at the end of the show because we both watched everything on it and more.
Yes, we are. I'm in the heat of summer, Chris. I'm in the heat of summer. I'm in my third week of having a newborn. So all that being said is we have been inside. We have been indoors, hunkered down. It's been hot outside. So I feel like I've just been in a like a little bubble. It's a cozy bubble. It's not a bad bubble. But we were talking about, we've been talking about like video games on and off for like the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And I've noticed that I have there's a lot of downtime with a newborn because they're primarily sleeping a lot. So you kind of just need to be at the ready.
Deep conversations with them, like, really pontificating life. But I understand.
Yeah, exactly. Like whenever a diaper is, ready, you gotta be up, you gotta be ready to go. But a lot of downtime in between. So I've been filling the downtime with a lot of different things that I like to do, which is weird because it's like, I have so much free time to explore and do things, at least for now, until the kid starts being active and moving around.
You know where they're laying and being like a little slug of a person for the time
yes,
being.
Exactly. I always got to keep them in the corner of your eye. But the neighbor across the street let me borrow their Super Mario Wonder, like the newest Nintendo
one with
Switch
the hat, right?
Mario game, I think, right?
No, not the one with the hat. That's Odyssey.
No,
Odyssey's the hat. Wonder is the 2D one.
Like it's like the psychedelic flower, and there's like a elephant or something. I don't know. I haven't started playing it yet, but I feel like the Switch is going to come in clutch because I was pretty vigorously playing Fallout 4. But, it's a console game, it demands the entire room that it's in. And I just kept thinking, like, am I the customer for that PlayStation Portal? Like, am I the person they made that thing for?
Right now.
I won't bring myself to buy it, but I keep thinking, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was on sale during Prime Day last week. I was keeping my eye out for those Prime Day deals. I didn't buy much, but maybe that Portal was on sale and I didn't. It
has been on sale pretty frequently, I think, since it's come out. But I don't know what a sale price is for that. Like, how much is someone willing to pay to access the PlayStation they have right there already in your setup? Because I also know you have like an iPad and like your phone and a computer that you can remote in your PlayStation as well. So I guess
that's true. I didn't think about that. So many options.
Yeah. It's very true because like to me, it's like, I have Game Pass and I can stream Game Pass to a browser, but I'm like, well, my Xbox is like 2 feet over that way, so if I just turn it on my Xbox, is that okay? Like, do I do it that way? But that's been fun because the Switch, obviously the Switch is like 7 years old now, 8 years old. I forget how old it is, but like still going strong.
It's old enough where I keep seeing people. Every time like a Nintendo Direct is within like smelling distance, they're always like, "Oh, here it is. This is when they're finally going to announce like the Super Nintendo Switch," which I think is a solid name.
Yeah. The Super Switch. Absolutely. I mean, it's over again. everyone's like games. They're like, well, Nintendo's not competing against Sony and Microsoft, right? They don't even bring the same games to the table. They hold their own. I sent you a video today where they were making fun, like Nintendo's like, we hold our own events. We're gonna remaster our own stuff. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited for I think, is it Gamescom or something's coming up in August, a big gaming event, and Nintendo's actually coming with some big titles for the first time in a while.
Wow.
With that, but I mean, I was gonna go the other way because it's not out yet again, but I'm in the beta instead of the alpha of Marvel Rivals coming up, and I pretty much lived and breathed this game when it came out, Mike. That first week I had it for an alpha, and I've been talking about it with us, and then obviously friend of the show Quentin Parker, we all signed up for it. I don't know if you signed up for it. I don't think you did, but they're giving out keys and it starts on Tuesday, so I'm about to live and breathe this game again. And two of the characters they added for this console version are actually Venom, which, no surprise, popular character, big in gameplay, right? He was in Spider-Man 2, and then Adam Warlock, surprisingly. I didn't think he would be on the roster of characters to get I guess a big call out in there. So very, very exciting for that. We also know him from, obviously people know Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, played by Will Poulter, I believe, right? So very, very excited to dive back into that. But I mean, Mike, I set this up for a segue into our first topic, unless you had something else you want to talk about, because that's why I was like, we can talk about games and keep going.
Yeah, I can find a way to key back into our normal news segment here. But my topic at the top of the show was just going to be the general concept of the third dimension.
Oh, Lord.
Which I didn't think I had a way to categorize the things that I've been up to. But one thing that's been fun in my spare time is I've been learning a new iPad app called Nomad Sculpt, which is like a 3D design tool that's built from the ground up to work inside of the iPad, which is really, really great because a year or two ago, I tried to teach myself Blender, which is a design tool which some people out there might be familiar with. It's
very
a free kind of open source design tool. Yeah, very powerful. And it's a really cool tool, but it's extremely shortcut key reliant. You really got to train the muscle memory of your fingers, and you got to use it weekly, daily to keep that muscle memory of normally most people only have to know copy paste or shift or very simple shortcut keys. Blender requires at least 20 off the top of your head, and once you forget them, it's really hard to pick that bike back up and ride it again. But Nomad Sculpt has been really fun because it's really intuitive and built for a touchscreen, so obviously there's no shortcut keys. So they try to give you all of the most useful features on toolbars visible to your eyes. It's really easy to move the screen around because it's touchscreen. You can use 2 fingers to undo and redo, which is just really, really awesome. So I've been learning it, following some tutorials. So hopefully I can surpass the slump of learning a new tool, which happens to me all the time, where I'll pick something up, I'll do one tutorial and I never go back to it again. So we'll see if I persist, and maybe Chris and I can get some fun 3D avatars on the podcast here in the future.
Well, I would love when you get this done. I mean, that's the whole concept of VTubing, right? VTubers have the 3D models that respond to it. We just have the animated GIFs, which are great, and I love them. And if we get a little more depth to them, it's great. But once you get those done, let me know. Let me put these models in the Quest 3, Mike, and see how they look with the.
Oh, you could meet your 3D rendered cartoon self, Chris. I love that idea.
I want to make sure the back of my neck, my hairline in the back, matches up with me in real life. So if I need to do some of those 3D scans, sit in a chair and spin around and send it to you, I can do that. You can.
Yeah, well, I learned about the software because it would pop up in my TikTok feed quite a lot, where a lot of artists are kind of designing their own little figurines, and they'll print them out on their 3D printers, which is really, really cool. And, whether it's for D&D or just a collectible shelf, they'll paint the figures as well. And I thought that was really, really cool. So now, my brain has been spinning, thinking about 3D printers, thinking about solving problems in your life with 3D printed things. So who knows if I'm going to be 3D pilled, but this brings me to, I just solved the problem with a 3D printed object. I didn't make it, but I found it on Etsy. We got a new fridge in our kitchen a year or so ago, and it has the water dispenser inside of the fridge, like on the inside wall. So like the front of the fridge is just totally flat, but it's weirdly like button operated. So whenever you want to refill something with the water spout, you need 2 free hands. You need one hand to press a button. You need another hand to hold the cup right underneath the spout. It's kind of maddening. So I was like, somebody has to have fixed this problem somewhere. So I just put the right keywords into Etsy search, and I found somebody who did it. They made a fully fleshed out like 3D print that like pops right into the spot where the current thing is, and it's just like a normal, like you push your cup up against the paddle and the water comes out. So I ordered that like an hour ago, and it's not going to be here for a week, but it's like the most it's like the most excited I'm about anything in my life right now outside of my newborn child. Just like, yes, this 3D printed part is going to solve a problem in my life, and it'll be here in 7 days. So obviously next week we're going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. We're going to be talking about Comic-Con, but I'm going to review the new 3D printed part that's going in my refrigerator next week on the show. So everyone stay tuned. I hope you're excited.
Well, I tell you what, the thing, I'm very familiar with 3D printed stuff because of tech things I can do. Like when you mount a motherboard on something, or like when I'm modding those arcade machines and you need to put a board on something, people 3D print board mounts, right? Like that fit that board specifically. But one of the things that I've got on there is for my light guns. It's a website called Thingiverse. Have you made it to Thingiverse yet?
Yeah, Thingiverse. I go there a lot. Yeah,
so you can pull down the 3D files and start editing models if you want to. I have a friend locally who does 3D printing. That's all his job. He was a teacher, quit to 3D print. I think he's making more money doing that than anything else.
Nice.
But he's printing me some stuff like that. I've got some. He's working on some video game console holders, like to prop up my Game Boys and stuff. That way they're not just laying flat on the shelf because you want to show them off. And I'm like, can you do me some of these up? They don't have to look too fancy. But you also may remember, had to have been 5-6 years ago, maybe more, they 3D printed me a Mjolnir, like the original, not Mjolnir. Yeah, Mjolnir, the original Thor's hammer. And a friend of the show, Pan, who is going to Comic-Con this week, he did the finessing touches on it, like painted it and added all the stuff to it. So 3D printing is a wild venture, and it is only getting cheaper to get into it because the patents on those machines keep expiring, and anyone can make them now. So if you get into it, let me know. I've got a list. I got a wish list, and you're gonna be the first guy. I'm like, test these out for me. Let's see how this works. But let's get into the news here. The whole point of this is that we were talking about video games. I thought I had it set up. Mike came in with 3D, threw me off. But if you want to see 3D models of video games, because this video game is not done, we actually have 6 links while they last to Wolverine, the upcoming video game from Insomniac, from the leak that was last year. I believe it's the same company that did the most recent Disney leak as well. So the link, the footage, the prototype is about 30% there. The game's kind of glitchy, blocky. It's due out in 2026 still, but like these 6 links, I had Mike watch the first one with me, kind of skimmed through it, and it's got they put the brightest yellow Wolverine costume on this dude, and they were kind of playing around, and they have like, just walking stuff. They've got you mentioned the mobility where he can climb the walls with his claws. Some brutal takedowns, some stealth options. Mike, I watched all of this earlier because I was just kind of going through the 90 minutes here, the links, but you for someone who doesn't play probably as many video games, what was your take on this? Well,
the last time we talked about this, we were primarily seeing a lot of like screen recordings of combat, like in interior spaces, or the most outside we ever got in the game was like courtyards surrounded by walls. So this was the first time we kind of got to see maybe like I don't want to stretch and say open world idea, but it seemed pretty open. He was in a city somewhere in some sort of tropical seaside town running around on top of rooftops. So there's got to be some sort of open world traversal ability to it, but it looked really, really cool. You reminded me, the game was called Crackdown back in the game, which was kind of like Grand Theft Auto, but what if you were kind of like super powered a little bit? So there's lots of big jumping leaps and bounds. He's using the claws to climb up and down buildings, which I thought was really cool. I love traversal mechanics. I love the empowerment of kind of being superhuman and traversing distances. I always think is really, really fun. There was some more like stealth that we got to see, where Wolverine's kind of like sneaking around, hiding in bushes. He's using his like sixth sense to kind of identify enemies like behind walls and everything.
See, like,
it looks really, really cool.
And you can see like their cardiovascular system, like the heart glows and like all their veins kind of pop in the bodies. Mike was mentioning like there's some other games like there's it's kind of like the Arkham sense from the Batman games, and I was telling Mike this like where this is the place they last saw you, so there's like a ghost silhouette of where you were, and you gotta run away, and they're all like, "Where'd he go? They're looking for you." So, all right, everyone do a patrol. So then you hide in the grass and pop out and kill them one by one. That stealth stuff. It looks really fun. And
it aligns. It aligns a lot more with, this time around with the current Insomniac Spider-Man video games, which makes sense because, it's not necessarily the same team, but same company. I got to imagine they want to kind of recapture that lightning with Wolverine and his game. I would love maybe some sort of crossover with these characters at some point in time, if they're kind of existing within same spaces. Like I could imagine this Wolverine character being in Manhattan, running around, between buildings, up skyscrapers and stuff. Maybe not as quick as Spider-Man would be able to do it, but still could be pretty fun. But you mentioned that the costume kind of stands out a little bit, especially with these lower fidelity graphics. But I got to imagine once they add more textures and atmosphering, and if it's anything like Spider-Man, Wolverine will get other suits.
Yeah.
I'm expecting you'll be able to unlock like the brown suit, the kind of like the Weapon X experimental suit. There's got to be other stuff that you
probably
get
the original one where he's got like
with.
whiskers on his nose instead of like the big fins. Probably like an ultimate suit and stuff like that. I agree. Probably maskless. Here's the huge. I mean, they did it with the Batman games. They did the Christian Bale, like the actual Michael Keaton Batmans in the Batman suit. So I can see them doing like the Hugh Jackman suit here from the upcoming movie as well. So it looks fun. I mean, it's about 90 minutes of gameplay while this is up. Who knows when YouTube or some DMCA will take it down? But honestly, it's just fun to kind of skim through and gets me hyped for the upcoming game, right? Like, honestly, like, Spider-Man 2, great, but like, I'm like, once you're done with it, you're done. I want to get on to the next one. I want to play another single player kind of game here. And we know from the leak, if everything holds true, it will lead to an X-Men game down the road. So I'm excited to see that as we go through. So you guys can check out those links. Or you can, go check out Wolverine in Hugh Jackman's return this week in Deadpool and Wolverine. So I'm very excited for this. I'm trying to maintain, again, low spoilers. I know reviews start coming out, I think, tomorrow night, or reactions tomorrow, reviews on Tuesday. I don't see any fan events opening up early, like on Wednesday for people to watch yet. So it seems like Thursday's still going to be when I get to see it. I've not even seen people getting the Wolverine popcorn buckets yet. Usually this stuff leaks early, but it seems like they got a very tight control on this, Mike. They're really pushing it over the weekend.
I know they released like a final trailer. I think they even called it the final trailer that has a character reveal towards the end of the trailer. So you'll want to avoid that for sure if you want, maximum surprises at the theater.
IGN ruined that for me. They even like had the screenshot of the character. I was like, you son of a bitch. And I hate to use language like that, but I'm like, you could at least black them out and put a question mark over it. Like, you won't believe who was revealed in this. Today there was a little 30-second spot about, see it opening weekend to avoid spoilers kind of thing, which obviously we always recommend that, see it as soon as you can. But we understand things happen, life happens, and people may not get to watch it, opening weekend. But I'm excited to finally delve into this. So it's our only Marvel movie of the year. It seems to be more of a passion project. This isn't just another churn and burn opportunity, right? They're not going to put it out and go to the next one. So excited to see that. And I'm also excited to see Red Hulk on a theater-sized screen, Mike, for that trailer whenever we get to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
Inevitably before it. But I was going to share with you because we thought, obviously popcorn merch is the thing this year. If you don't have a popcorn bucket, don't put a movie out, right? So we have a new version. It looks, someone says it's Deadpool. Someone says it's Babypool. I can't tell, but it's Deadpool holding a big plastic popcorn bucket, and it looks pretty cool. Hopefully, we're not seeing another fake render. Because
we gotta figure out if we're being fooled or not.
Yes. So I've also included Cinemark has released on X their official offerings for everything that they've got, and they've got a Wolverine mask bucket, but it's not the same one from the official reveal, if you will. So
yeah, whatever happened to that chair, that Professor X chair that was teased?
Regal. I'm gonna look it up. So I'm gonna look up the Regal stuff while we kind of go over this.
Yeah, you look it up, and I'll talk about this. I mean, proportion-wise, if you're looking at this Deadpool, it does seem to be baby-esque in a way, but also it kind of just looks like more of like a chibi version of Deadpool. But the proportions are there to make it feel babyish. But at the same time, there's only so many theaters out there in the world, so how many popcorn buckets can they possibly make for this movie? That's what I'm curious about. Like, they're running out of different companies.
Well, they might even. My fear is that theaters are not gonna be the only people selling this stuff. Like GameStop, you can get the Deadpool popcorn bucket from GameStop, kind of thing. Like, they're just gonna start opening up to all these different things, and I'm like, oh, that's not gonna be as fun anymore. I can't find the Regal thing. It looks like they haven't.
Like, if this baby Deadpool bucket is fake, I will give them their credit for they put in like the fake mold plastic seam line that goes across like the body. So at least they're putting their details in there. But yeah, I do kind of get fake vibes off of this.
Cinemex in Mexico is where this is from, Mike. So maybe it is like IP copyright, or maybe Cinemex. I don't know what rules they have down there. I'm gonna look up Cinemex Deadpool popcorn bucket and make sure we're right. But yeah, it looks, this is, you ordered it from Temu, right? Temu, however you want to say it. Like, it feels like it, right? So I'm gonna keep looking at this. But yeah, everyone's got one. So if you go to the Cinemark one though, they have the Deadpool sitting on a taxi as a popcorn vessel as well, which is interesting. I know they did that with Barbie and Fast 10, I think, with the car popcorn vessels. I don't think those are very practical.
Well, I didn't know that there was a car component for Deadpool and Wolverine outside of like the van that we've seen, in the trailers. So is this just kind of supposed to harken back to, what was his his friend in the previous
Dopinder from the first one, who kept taking him from the taxi, from Deadpool 1, which I need to do my Deadpool 1 and 2 rewatch this week in the background before the movie comes out. But yeah, I think the taxi is a throwback. I've not seen it in there, but like we said, we've seen them kind of doing that van ride in the trailer so far. Then you have the generic circular popcorn bucket, and then the regular cups. I don't care for these buckets and cups, Mike.
Yeah, they're just the generic kind of. They say they're collectible, but no one in their right mind really keeps them.
They take up a lot of space. They take up a lot of space. I actually have an Avengers cup still from when I went and saw Avengers 1, like that. With 3D printing, you're not supposed to dishwash them, or it'll take everything off the side of it. So I still have my Avengers one. They have these little buddy cups next to here. I've not seen these before. Have you ever seen these buddy cups? They look like maybe kid drink holders, maybe. Even though this is a rated R movie, I don't know why they put kid cups out. And then the blankets. Cinemark around here is huge for selling blankets before you go into the movie, in case you get cold in the movie theater, Mike. So I'm excited. I want to go in and see. I want to see all the merch. I want to see the movie. I want to see everything else. And then because we are #blessed, Marvel is doing a second Hall H panel this year dedicated to Deadpool and Wolverine on Thursday night when the movie's released. So for those who are going to San Diego Comic-Con, can probably try to get into that Hall H panel. If not, we'll report back on it next week. I don't think it'll be much, but that is pretty cool that they've added an extra. The first time they've ever been twice to San Diego Comic-Cons because they have a movie the same week, which I think is really cool. Along that note, so anything from Deadpool and Wolverine you want to watch? Any last thoughts? Because this is the last time we're going to talk before we review it next weekend, Mike.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready to talk about this movie. I'm ready to stop the rampant speculation from the people out there in the world.
The clickbaits, the cameo links are finally going to die down for the first time in years. And then also, the little tie-ins are funny. The Spotify, the soundtrack was released this week as well with the songs. and I sent Mike the Spotify thing where Deadpool is starting a podcast with Wolverine, and they cut all his grunts into one big super cut in that video, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, just seeing Hugh Jackman in full Wolverine costume with studio headphones on in front of a microphone is just really, really funny. So I would go watch it just for the visual.
He looks just so pissed off too. That like the whole thing. Did you make that image you sent me, like of the 6 shots?
Yeah, I took some of my favorite screenshots.
He just looks so angry. It's so great. So we'll be reporting back next week. If you guys want to give us your quick reviews after Thursday, send it to us, and we'll try to include them in our reviews next week. Moving on, San Diego Comic-Con is this week, so we've got some news coming, but first and foremost, Wonder Man is actually out filming, and this is a rarity because they actually have a pretty big setup piece going here for Wonder Man in front of a movie theater, if you will. So it looks like they're filming the premiere of a Wonder Man movie because he's a movie star in the Marvel comic books, and in front of a movie theater. And I thought it was kind of interesting to take a look at whatever is happening in this movie scene, Mike.
Yeah, it's very meta photos because it feels like, oh, are we watching like a red carpet? Because it looks like a red carpet, but actually it's set photos
Of a red carpet,
I just
probably.
I just kind of look at this as kind of like the beginning of our beginning of our kind of overall Future of Marvel news segment in this week's episode of just everything's heating up, everything's starting, they're hitting the ground running. Feige's out there talking to people, and it's not even Comic-Con yet, and we're getting like official statements from the man himself before he
we get a movie
walks on stage.
The same week we get a movie, he's out doing he's jiving, rubbing elbows with people, wearing his hats. I love his hats.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's cool because actually I would say this is the kickstart of it, but this is like, I guess, the most solid bit of information we have for the rest of the episode, because everything else is like reports and possibly rumors. So it's cool to see this. It's great to see. I've included some close-ups here. Wonder Man's on the back in the I guess the cinema name. The movie title appears to be Wonder Man as well, Mike. So he's starring in a movie called Wonder Man. And then the second one is the suit outline. So we get to see the W, the classic red illuminated W for Wonder Man on his suit. Normally, I think it's like a full-bodied, like filled red logo. So to see the lines on this is interesting. It kind of gives me Wonder Woman vibes a little bit. And I think that's maybe the idea behind it. So we got those in our show notes, and take a look and let us know what you think. I think the movie standee is interesting because it's like, it looks like Earth and then the moon and then maybe some Mars stuff going on here. So it looks like he might be fighting aliens. Could be a reenactment from Avengers. We don't know yet. But if they are filming, there might be footage at San Diego Comic-Con, and if we do, we will either steal it and share it with you folks as fast as we can, or just give you a description of it later, because really we're an audio podcast and we can't really, we can just paint a picture for you and let you imagine it yourselves at the end of the day. The theater of the mind. Moving into Avengers 5, previously titled The Kang Dynasty, per The Hollywood Reporter. And I say this because The Hollywood Reporter is most likely operating off factual information, not rumored information. It could always be wrong. It's not necessarily from Marvel Studios directly, but Anthony and Joe Russo are in talks to direct Avengers 5 and possibly Secret Wars after this. Now, I will say the other advent here, it has been confirmed that the Russos had previously approached Marvel to direct it without Marvel coming in, but back then plans were different. And still, I think King Dynasty things were, going on. They probably had some other people lined up. Chapek era, probably. Avengers, King Dynasty. So things have obviously changed. And it sounds like they are reaching a deal to come back for Avengers 5.
I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts about this.
And I'm going to add this. Let me just add the rumor in real fast, because this is more rumored. Is that one or both of the writing team of Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who wrote Avengers or Civil War, Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame, could be back to write this. So either one or both of them are in talks to come back and not write Secret Wars, or help rewrite it. I guess I don't know. We don't know how the writing system works over there. They could have scripts already. We don't know. But anyway, but I'll let you kick it off, Mike, here about the THR stuff.
It really just feels like the safest move overall, right, from over there on the studio side. You know, we have these 2 big Avengers movies coming up. They have to be successful. We have to reignite our, Marvel Studio juggernaut, which would bring in regularly $1 billion per movie. And it makes the most sense to just bring back the teams that did it the first time around. Why not? They obviously are successful, and the Russos know how to handle like these big event movies. Let's bring them back and let's go. That makes sense to me, right? But there's also part of me that's like, but I want to move forward, right? I want things to stay fresh and exciting. Like, it's kind of harsh to say to bring back the Russos feels stale to me, but it just seems just like, oh, we don't have another idea. We don't have another strategy. Let's just do exactly what we did again and cross our fingers and hope it works. But that's kind of how I think about it. If I think about all of this as movies, right? You know, we've watched plenty of franchises or quadrilogies or trilogies where the same director kind of keeps coming back, and we're just like, I wish maybe they could bring somebody back in. They're like, refreshing this up a little bit. On the other hand, though, we often compare the MCU to like the most expensive TV series of all time, right? And each movie is an episode. And if I think about it from an episodic point of view, I was like, well, it kind of makes sense to keep the Russos around, like for continuity wise, right? If I'm thinking of like a Game of Thrones or something like that, I'm not going to be so upset if every season they kind of bring back like the same, writers and directors. Like, yeah, just to keep it going. They're doing a good job. So like, I'm a man of 2 opinions on this. Also, I've seen people out there kind of bring up kind of the obvious observation of like, well, the Russos left, their success at Marvel Studios to kind of go off and do their own thing, and none of those things really panned out, and nobody really liked any of that stuff. So it kind of feels a little bit like crawling back to mom and dad, moving back into the basement, but that's a bit of a stretch.
So I'm going to give I think my take's a little different. Number one, I think to me the movies that we enjoyed so much with them had the writers, and the writers are the ones who are making the movie and telling the story, and the directors are coming in and working within the system, right? Marvel and Disney are a system you're working in. They don't really give a lot of creative input. Like the director probably has a little bit, but not as much as I would say the writers and the producers do. So giving them full credit for what they did before is unfair. I still think the writers and the producers do that, but I think they work well in the system. And Marvel needs a system right now to be successful, right? Sean Levy coming in, doing his thing is a breath of fresh air. We have 3 movies next year. Before, I think 3 movies, maybe 4 before we get to Avengers. And that's if Blade makes it. I mean, Blade's, we're going to talk about it later. I don't know if Blade will make it. But to have people who know how to work in the Marvel system come and film everything, help put it together in post-production, do the reshoots that are required to make it a movie, put it out there, tell a story with a bunch of things. I think they could work within it as a director system, but I think your writing has to pull this all together. Without the writers, none of this works. You can pick whoever you want as a director. If the script sucks, the movie's going to suck right at the end of the day. So I think giving them full credit is unfair to everybody else involved. So I think, that's fine. They could put whoever in here, but I'm going to go back to what you mentioned about consistency. They have sucked since Marvel left, right? I think the Extraction series on Netflix has been their most successful, and Joe Russo was the writer of those, not necessarily the team, and I don't even think they didn't direct those. But, if we look at Stranger Things, the Duffer Brothers, who worked on all those together with a writing team and have directed Stranger Things more than, I would say, Game of Thrones, I think that is successful, right? Because they're able to tell the story. They're able to maybe pick up from Avengers Endgame, as you mentioned, consistency and lay it down here. So I am of that opinion as well, but I am less like, I don't think it's stale. I think Marvel needs something proven right now with Avengers 5 before we even think about Secret Wars. If Avengers 5 doesn't work, Secret Wars isn't going to work. So I think if you can bring people in who can work in the system and deliver a good product with what they have, and with all the producers, everyone's happy, and they put out a great product, and it's full of those hype moments, I think they could do that and then set us up for someone for Secret Wars. I don't think they need to go to Secret Wars. I think that's where you get somebody different, because you're going to really need to, like you mentioned, go out with the bang, and you're going to need to, if it is a reboot, we are still operating under the assumption it's a reboot. After that, it needs to reboot very, very well. So, I agree with you. I'm like 50-50, but like my 50 is different than your 50, if that makes sense along the way. But I think they may do some announcements for this at Comic-Con. If this news is coming up this week, 2 weeks before Comic-Con, my guess is they probably have something in place for this already. They've already probably been working on it with them. A lot of people are like, they're going to start over from scratch right now. I'm like, no, these announcements are just when they hit the public, not when like the things actually happen behind the scenes, right? It's not like someone signs a contract, then they go out and start working the next day, and then that's when the news hits. My guess is if they've been working on it, they've probably been working on it several months at this point, Mike. You think, like, there's no way movies move that fast over there. So anything else on Avengers 5 before we get to Secret Wars? Because, the Secret Wars rumor would make me want kind of the Russos to come back, if that makes sense.
What's our rumor for Secret Wars?
So our Secret Wars rumor is very interesting because it is Robert Downey Jr. is more than likely to return as Iron Man and Tony Stark before becoming Doctor Doom in a Battle World scenario for Secret Wars. So setting him up, the new thing would be setting an evil version, an alternate version of Iron Man, like the not the Invincible Iron Man, what's he called? Superior Iron Man, and then having him turn into be quote unquote not the Doctor Doom, but a Doctor Doom-esque character of Battle World. So, and Robert Downey Jr. has more recently said, I'm more open to returning to the character than he has been before, but also because he did that really awful Doctor Dolittle movie right after as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a big reveal, right? I mean, I imagine a movie like Secret Wars is just full of reveals, big exciting moments. That's what you want out of a big Avengers movie.
That Leo meme, right, where you're pointing at the screen every time something comes up. You're like, there it is. I know that. I like those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were talking about, like the writers for these next two Avengers movies, like what is the glue that brings all of this together, though? Mm-hmm. Because you have the advantage of being in a multiversal world. You can create whatever villain you want out of thin air, right? You don't need to grab lore from a comic book. We can just let's just bring back Robert Downey Jr. and make him bad, and we'll just say it's from a multiverse. It's so easy. We don't have to do any explanation. We don't have to do any groundwork. It'll be cool. The audience is going to go crazy.
Like, use him for one movie. You don't have to carry on his legacy because he already had a good legacy at the end of the day.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, well, what is what's the thread that's getting me to that, right? Mm-hmm. I want to see the Avengers overcome and triumph, but it's more satisfying, right? When it's from a threat that you've built up. Like a character like Thanos, who's been built up over many post-credit scenes in other movies as well. So the big baddie in the final can't just be an alternate Iron Man. I could see that being a cool thing that happens, but we need a bigger, bad thing to happen. The rumor,
the second level rumor to this is that it's technically the Iron Man from Multiverse of Madness, from that Avengers world that Strange has to fight the Avengers and Wanda kills everybody, because there's an empty chair there, and that empty chair is supposed to represent like Iron Man who wasn't there at the moment, kind of thing. Like that. So he's coming looking for revenge on Wanda and happens to be the person smart enough to kind of pull the world together or rule it whenever the battle world comes together. So if that's the case and they're able to pull him in, that's a it seems more like an Iron Man, or not Iron Man, a Doctor Strange 3 villain, if you will. But we may get a Doctor Strange 3 announcement at Comic-Con this weekend. But these are all very early. I don't think Secret Wars is early enough in the writing thing that like this rumor's like gonna stick. We always talk about the mythical dry erase board in the Marvel offices with those mirrored windows that we can't see through. and this is probably one of the ideas on there. Like, can we bring back Robert Downey Jr.? Where do we put him at? Is he an alternate? Is he an evil Iron Man? Is he maybe he's a good Iron Man? And then Doctor Doom's like written right beside him, kind of thing. Because there's a comic book after the Superior Iron Man where Doctor Doom takes up the mantle of Iron Man. Have you ever seen that comic book where it looks like Doom's in an Iron Man armor, kind of thing? So there's a comic basis for this for a couple years where Doom, after Secret Wars, actually in the comic books, he got his face, his messed up face. He got his face back in the comic books. That was one of the gifts Reed Richards gave him whenever he rebuilt the universe, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna go do good things, and he takes over like an Iron Man suit to do it, kind of deal. But yeah, I'm seeing Robert Downey Jr. back in the role. Someone asked me this actually this week. They were like, I don't want to do that. He went out on such a good thing. I think bringing him back doesn't diminish his good thing because it's a different character. Like, it would have to be a different character, right? It wouldn't be the Infinity War Iron Man. It would just be a Iron Man, a Tony Stark. It could even be an AI version if they need to. But like, I don't think it diminishes that because we still have that moment. We can always go back to that. But in a multiverse, anything's possible. But you're right. At the end of the day, it has to have a reason. It can't just be just because we can, because that doesn't really fulfill anything at the end of the day. So there's a lot riding on these two movies, right? Like, it feels like a lot is in these films, and boy, they really got to nail it. So knock on wood, we get to hear these plans that they've been working on coming up here. Next three topics. These are the Kevin Feige bits that Mike was talking about at the top. He's out there. He's wheeling. He's dealing. He's telling secrets to everybody right now. And the first bit is the Nova character that Kevin Feige confirmed that a Nova show is in the works. And he even name dropped the character Richard Rider, the original adult Nova, not the new younger Sam Alexander Nova. And he still said it's like 3 to 4 years out. So that's got that. All these Nova fans who've been talking about this for about 10 years since Guardians 1 came out have to be excited, Mike. Their jimmies have to be rustled. They got to be ready to rock and roll with this Nova news out there, right?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because with Guardians of the Galaxy wrapped up, probably not getting another proper Captain Marvel movie anytime soon. There's really not an anchor for us in space at the moment. I could see maybe an Eternal sequel. You know, they kind of set up part of the team going through space.
A lot of space
through there,
stuff not left. You're right. Like, I wouldn't even count on Eternals 2 anytime soon.
Yeah, so like by the time we go back to space, it sounds like it could be like a Nova Corps kind of storyline, which makes sense, right? There's been a lot of turmoil happening out there in the galaxy, and I could see like a resurgence of like the Nova Corps being very necessary, and that could be, you know, a way to bring the character in.
And there is a comic book series where Richard Rider is the last living Nova, and the Nova intelligence is in his in his helmet. So he's like, he has to carry it on to rebuild the Nova. Now, I'm not saying he should do this, but they have laid those seeds pretty heavily in Infinity War, right? When Thanos went to get the which stone was it? Was it the Reality Stone? No, Power Stone. The Power Stone at Xandar, and they didn't show it on screen, so we assume all the Novas are dead, or at least, you know, they have to rebuild that. So it could be a very young police force, and tie that in with James Gunn building out that Lantern show for HBO, right? Like, very similar space cops, you know, solving mysteries. Like, I want to see this, and I think Richard Rider having an adult character is very, very important to that. I think there's nothing wrong with the younger Nova, but like, you got to have the classic one. And if they build that into a movie, and I put here, this is my note, legendary Star-Lord we know is coming, so what if the Novas are out to find Star-Lord? We need your help, you know, or kind of thing, or Star-Lord needs their help, and that's where they do a crossover, is with the upcoming Star-Lord movie kind of deal.
Yeah, maybe.
So we don't know where that's going. I hope maybe they'll have some news this week. Chris Pratt's not getting any younger. He can only voice over so many animated roles before he runs out of animated roles to voice. So we'll see with that. But Nova, good, awesome. Glad they've got that news out of Kevin while he's out there. Move along. He did also bring up Blade, Mike, and he has said that they would rather get the movie right than rush it. I agree. I would love to see Blade. I know it was announced 5 years ago this week. We were there. So there's been no progress. It's still even for fall next week. I don't think, or not fall next year. I don't think they've even started filming it yet. But he did go on to say, Kevin Feige was like, movies that have existed before, like Deadpool, are inherently R. They're already R-rated, right? You don't really want to break the mold by taking Deadpool to a PG-13 level. Blade, the same way. He said Blade movies are inherently R-rated, so that implies that this Blade movie will continue the R rating into his new iteration.
Yeah, I mean that's a good sign too that if Marvel wants to keep its money machine working, if they want their rated R characters to cross over, they're going to need more of them, right? So yeah, I would love to see more of like a rated R section of Marvel being built out.
Yeah, they had that the Marvel Max series, comic series. I don't know if you remember those for a while, and then Marvel Knights as well. So they could easily do like a Marvel Knights, and then we've always talked about the possibility of Midnight Suns, and that would probably need to be R-rated as well if they wanted to go that route. So we'll keep you guys posted. Hopefully they'll have a Blade update this week, other than hey, we don't have any news, because that would just be disappointing. Last bit of news here, and I've flagged this as Spider-Man Homecoming, Mike, because I have nowhere else to put this. But in Spider-Man Homecoming from 2017, the Avengers Tower was being sold, and we were all like, "Oh my God, who's buying it? When are we going to find out who's buying it?" 7 years later, we don't know who bought this tower, and Kevin Feige has said that the Avengers Tower owner will be revealed soon, and that is good. That also reiterates Brad Winderbaum, the Marvel, I think television or maybe animation, I forget which one he's running. Said that will be revealed sometime soon as well, earlier this year. I think when What If season 2 came out. But I have listed. I sat here for half an hour thinking of who could own Avengers Tower in the MCU, Mike. And my most apparent, my biggest one is like next year we get Wilson Fisk in Daredevil Born Again, probably running for mayor. We've heard rumors of he could own the tower, Fisk Tower. We've also heard Mephisto will be someone who has a lot of money in Ironheart and is trying to. I don't know what he's doing. We don't know much about Ironheart, but that's the rumor I'm putting down. Sacha Baron Cohen, Justin Hammer will possibly show up in Armor Wars. He could have bought Stark Tower. I don't know if Tony Stark would have sold it to Justin Hammer, but it's been 7 years in world. We don't know who owns it. And then lastly, the U.S. government could have bought it and is running a Thunderbolts out of it, like their own U.S. sanctioned Avengers, as Harrison Ford said in the most recent Captain America trailer.
Yeah, I'm of two minds on this one. The first part of me wants to go Marvel movies more often than not, even though we like to spin out and believe the biggest, most wildest rumors and setups. A lot of the time these movies stay inside of their own story. As much as we want like a Spider-Man movie to hint at another movie in the future, it's usually hinting at just more Spider-Man stuff. So the most obvious thing would be, it's like Norman Osborn, right? Keep it in the Spider-Man universe. It was set up in a Spider-Man movie. Why not pay it off in a Spider-Man movie?
Because Norman Osborn is not in the MCU.
Well, but since you bring up the point that this should be revealed soon, is I'm not expecting Spider-Man news anytime soon.
Yeah.
So that's what makes me think, they could be going a different direction with it. And, Fisk could make sense. Is Fisk a big enough player to own a gigantic skyscraper? He's big in New York, but I feel like you have to be big worldwide to own, a skyscraper.
Well, the other part was, we've heard that he is possibly the villain in Spider-Man, right? Remember, he was supposed to be working with like the Scorpion and somebody else to be the villain of Spider-Man movie. So possibly he could be. That would tie into your Spider-Man idea as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he has enough money. What we saw in Echo and Daredevil leads me to believe he doesn't have that kind of money to buy that tower.
Everyone wants it to be the Fantastic Four, but we haven't really set that up yet.
Yep.
And we know that they're going to start in a different universe. So like I'm saying, I can imagine a scenario which they make it to our world, but if they kind of know the tower's already been purchased, that would almost kind of mean the Fantastic Four movie has to take place like before like Homecoming, or or it's just, I feel like there's not enough time.
The Fantastic Four is set in the 1960s, right? We already have that confirmed. So I don't
Yeah,
think
but
that's
in a different universe, though.
Right.
So
But
that's the whole thing. So
Yeah.
Fantastic Four kind of seems almost a little bit more far-fetched now, depending on how much they've set up.
Yeah. I would love to see it be a Hammer Industries Armor Wars kind of thing, because I think Justin Hammer got the shaft in Iron Man 2. I loved him. Sam Rockwell played a great version of that character, and Iron Man 2 is just it's fine. It's a fine movie, but I think he being an incompetent kind of person, and then being out of jail after all this time, and then kind of trying to be the hey, we have Tony Stark at home kind of dude would be funny for him to be like, oh, I'm just buying up Tony's secondary stuff so I can run my own business out of it. But I don't know. Any of these could work. They say soon. I don't know what Marvel soon is, because we have Captain America and Thunderbolts next year. That's really kind of why I threw and Daredevil. So Daredevil was in there, and Thunderbolts I threw in there. I don't think the government bought it for Avengers because they have the Avengers campus, right, that we've seen. So I'm interested. This is like it's a very kind of C-level plot point, or I guess B-level plot point in Homecoming that never has been paid off yet, and everyone wants to know who bought that tower, because I remember the first time I watched Avengers, I missed it, but the second time I watched it, I saw where the Stark letters fell off and only the A was left. I'm like, damn, that's deep level stuff. This building's going to be important for years to come, and here we are without anything. Oh well, at least we have Spider-Man Noir to look forward to, Mike. We can at least talk about it for a little bit. The rumored synopsis for this TV series on Amazon with Nicolas Cage is that we follow Ben Reilly, a PI, as he stumbles down a rabbit hole of corruption in 1933 New York, while also establishing his past as a superhero. Reilly investigates the death of Edward Addison, which leads him to discover that the mayor is up to something nefarious that involves crime boss Silvermane and femme fatale Yuri Watanabe. So Brandon Gleeson's probably playing Silvermane, who is an older Magia crime boss. The Magia are mafia, but they couldn't use the word mafia in the comic books back then because of the comic code. So that lines up, and I believe we had an announcement this week that Yuri Watanabe was cast in the news, and I need to find that. But she's in the Spider-Man games. Mike, you want to kind of give that up while I look up this news real fast? Her character in the Spider-Man games.
Yeah, I mean, are we going? The thing is anything really going to bear fruit with anything modern in Spider-Man? This is a Spider-Man TV show on Amazon Prime set in the 30s, and it's not
even Peter Parker.
Yeah, it's a totally different universe as well. It feels like it's Spider-Man in name only to get people to watch the show. Right, Spider-Man Noir could very easily have a totally different power set. He's a very iconic character from the way he looks. He's a fan favorite for kind of being this alternate version of Spider-Man. But I think everyone would prefer to have this character in a different way. I mean, I thought he functioned perfectly in the Spider-Verse movies. I mean, that's a great way to give us this character. This just really feels like unnecessary viewing. No one's gonna have to watch this to complete any sort of story.
But I'm gonna go out there and say you don't have to watch any. That is fine to have content that you don't have to watch. I think the content you have to watch is where it becomes a problem. Anything can be good. This could be good. Brandon Gleeson's a great cast. The actress Lee Jun Lee, she's from Wu Assassins. I just looked her up. Apparently that show's been praised. Nicolas Cage is a wild card. Admittedly, he is a wild card. And Amazon's kind of been on fire with some of their shows lately. So I'm torn, but I will say against your point, and that's fine. You can have yours. I don't think we need required watching just to watch something. It could be good, and I can watch it. All right, it's fine. It's one and done kind of deal. At the end of the day, but this suffers from what you always call the Batman problem, Mike. And what is the Batman problem? The Gotham problem, if you will.
If you're making a show about Batman, you better give me Batman.
Yeah. So Spider-Man Noir, historically, obviously has the abilities of a spider god because he was bitten by, or a spider-like god in this one, not necessarily a radioactive spider, and he has Spider-Man powers. I don't think he'll have Spider-Man powers in this, Mike. That's my concern. It's going to be he's gonna have tripwire, and that's gonna be his Spider-Man webbing, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I'd like to know more, but they have casts again. Nicolas Cage, Brendan Gleeson, Lee Jun Lee. I did look that up. That is confirmed. So it sounds like this is moving along. We could possibly be seeing this next year. You think late next year, fall of 25, if they move fast enough.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
it seems like if I was Amazon and I was kind of scheduling out my releases based on, potential audience, you would want this to come out maybe after the next season of The Boys, since season 5 is supposed to be the last season, Well,
so that The Boys is, I did see that their teasing is 2026. So I think they need something to fill next year. Because I think Gen V season 2 is also next year. So I think, do you put something in 2025 to fill the gap? Because Lord of the Rings is next month as well, their other big show. I don't know. I'd probably put it in between. I don't know if I'd wait till 25 or 26 to do it, but
well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they had another Spider-Man show before.
Yes,
never came to light. We'll see if it happens again.
They didn't have any cast though. I guess that's the other thing. If they didn't have cast, I'd be, I think. But we'll see. The Silver and Black, was it movie? They got canned the week before it was supposed to start filming too.
Who knows?
Sony's all over. The only bit of DC news I got this week, and maybe, I don't know if there'll be any next week, is that the movie Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3 came out, the animated movie, the final part of the trilogy of animated films. And this one has the actual last appearance of Kevin Conroy's Batman, sadly. The late Kevin Conroy. From Batman the Animated Universe, voice acting opposed to, or opposite, Mark Hamill's Joker. A return to that for him. So I think also could be considered maybe Mark Hamill's last outing as Joker. Isn't he on the record saying that he wouldn't do anymore if he's not doing it with Kevin Conroy? Oh.
He kind of wants to retire it. So who knows? He could have other recordings banked that just haven't been released yet, So, maybe we'll hear Mark Hamill more as the Joker. But this scene fits really, really well, right? It's almost like a, not like a cutaway. It's just like a little one-off scene of like, it looks like we're getting kind of universes like evaporated, right? As like a doom curtain scrolls across the city, and we just get this like nice little like classic Batman Joker, scene together. We get to hear Hamill and Conroy. It's just it's a nice kind of almost fitting farewell.
Yeah, it was a farewell. It was it wasn't. Obviously, Kevin Conroy didn't know he was going to pass away, so obviously they filmed this, but it's very fitting for that. And it would be one of those situations, like to me, like seeing the blimps, right? The old blimps from the animated movie or the animated show and stuff like that. It's just like, this is great to revisit this one last time, even if it's for a brief moment in time. And it feels like it could be from any part of that whole universe, the Batman animated show, right? It could literally be from any time there, and that's great. So I've included the clip here, the link in the show notes if anyone wants to watch it. I watched it, I think on like a quick X video. I was like, I needed something a little high res, but all three of those movies are out. So if you're interested in Crisis on Infinite Earths as a saga, all three animated parts are out, so you can watch those as well. All right, into the show. We're going to talk about Star Wars: The Acolyte. Mike, the show is wrapped up this week, so I will go ahead and say #spoilers from here on out. We're going to review this fully unfettered, without anything holding anyone back, and I will say that part starts now. How's that sound? Spoilers starting now?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Spoilers for The Acolyte. Surprisingly, like I said last week, I was able to finish this one up, even with having a new baby in the house. But, it helps, right, when things aren't dropped all at once. Mm-hmm. And I can just, all I have to do, my only responsibility for Star Wars is to set aside 30 to 40 minutes this week. I'll watch one episode while I'm working out, and I can get it done and get it over with. The over with mentality kind of started to ease up as I got further into the show. It started off a little slow, felt a little bit more like a chore at the beginning, but it really started to pick up as people started dying. They are not afraid to establish a character, give them a little bit of background, some character development, and then just murder them, which I thought was exciting.
And they do that really at the get-go, right? The first episode, obviously, we've seen from the trailer that very probably expensive actress, from The Matrix, from Marvel, from now Star Wars, Carrie-Anne Moss is in this movie, and she's killed in the first episode, very, very much so. And obviously she's back again through flashbacks throughout the rest of the season. But they literally, if these characters are not seen, since this is 100 years before, is it 100 years or 50 years? It's 100 years, right? Before the Phantom
It's at least
Menace.
triple digits.
Yeah, I think it's 100 years before Phantom Menace. That if only the two characters in this whole show we know live to be in it later. And none of them are actually the main characters. They're more just kind of like appearances. So anyone could die, and boy, did they take that to heart by killing off a lot of people that I did not think they were going to kill off halfway through the season. My viewing experience was much different, though. I would say we binged 7 episodes last weekend and then watched the final one on Tuesday. So we had a whole different experience, because not that we weren't avoiding it, it was just finding time to do it. We had some time. We're like, oh, this is when you can watch 2 in a row, it kind of actually felt faster. I don't know, like you mentioned, it was like slow. Like it felt good to just kind of keep rolling with the journey very quickly, because it did happen very quickly. It felt like in this show. But
yeah, I feel like before laying a stake in the ground of my opinion of the show overall, I just have to say the quality and execution of the show is just so wholly detached from the reaction out there in the world of this show. Review bombing is such a shitty thing to do. And, once the dust kind of settles and all, the trolls, crawl back into their cave,
and pick the right show, because they were review bombing the wrong movies even. But
yeah, exactly. The dust kind of settles and the fan base can kind of get back into having, normal conversations about the show. But it's not like these platforms come in and clean up the mess that they made. Yep. If you go on IMDb right now, this looks like the worst thing Star Wars ever made, according to those reviews. And they don't seem to have any intention to go in and try to figure out a way to delete reviews of people that weren't reviewing it in earnest. So it's just kind of upsetting that we have the context of this show being released, right? But who's to say, in 10, 15 years, when people are doing video essays of Star Wars content, they might not have really been around or paying attention to the reaction, and they just see oh wow, this show had really bad reviews. So that's the thing that really upsets me, is I can look past the trolls very, very easily, and I have the context. But a lot of streaming platforms out there now, I'm not saying necessarily Disney does this, but there are streamers where you open up and they gleefully put the review of their content right up to it. I think Peacock will show you the Rotten Tomato score when you open up a movie. I think Amazon will show you the IMDb score. So, if Disney ever adapts any sort of, feature like that, it's really going to screw over the Acolyte a lot. So I have to say, you kind of have to talk about this now within the context of I hate people, I hate that people just can't have an educated media literacy around anything anymore. It's just really frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where, obviously, I'm not saying this show's a 10. The show's not a 10 by any means. Otherwise, we would have been on it much sooner. But it's not a 1, right? Anyone can watch this and be like, this is not the worst thing ever made in the history of anything. So it's sad to say, because I use we mentioned Plex for a lot of my media, and they use the movie database as a review thing, and they are not impervious to the same things as everybody else. But it sits at a more generous 49% on it than a 1-star review. So it is sad, if you don't like it, there are people who didn't watch it and just reviewed it, right? I think that is maybe the I wouldn't say the solution, but that a lot of the people who did review it, oh, I hated this, they didn't watch it. They just read what somebody else wrote and did that as well. So I agree. I hate the, I guess, ease of something that you can just do this without confirming you watched it, or at least putting in the effort to do it, because there are things out there that are good that are review bombed the other way, the things that are bad that are giving good reviews, because people are fans of the thing rather than it goes both ways. So it just sucks that there's no, as you said, way to filter out the trash along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's just jump in and talk about things that we liked about. I think the strongest thing about this show overall is easily Manny Jacinto, the bad guy, if you will. I love the design. Yeah, I love the design of his helmet. I think it's very iconic. It's hard to make iconic things in Star Wars now. I feel like every single Disney Plus Star Wars show, they're always trying to create some sort of like brand new like little robot or droid. They're trying to make something that is, stands the test of time. And I think his helmet is like really cool. It looks primitive. It's striking. It has that kind of spooky grin to it. Like you don't want to walk into a dark alley and like see that guy. It's awesome.
And
he has like,
well, I was gonna say it's really cool. They actually pulled from Star Wars Legend the teeth, and it are made out of cortosis, which are anti-lightsaber materials, as we saw in the show as well. Which is
great, because I had no idea that was a type of thing that existed. I think that's a bigger conversation to have while we talk about this too, is just Star Wars lore in general. But I loved the lightsaber battles that he had, his little dual splitting thing where he gets like a little knife and a lightsaber.
The little end cap there
is really cool. They do a great job balancing the combat as well. He pulls out his little knife and dagger because he's trying to get like the scrappy edge, but once the battle starts to get really intense, he'll put it back in, realizing he kind of has to concentrate. I love this new feature that they've added to the world of you can kind of stall a lightsaber. At first I thought he was wearing bracers on his arm like Batman, but it's just because I couldn't quite follow what was happening in the Dark Forest. But no, it was his helmet, he was interrupting the lightsabers.
It's both. He actually has them in his bracers as well.
Okay. It was hard to see if he had bracers or not, but I was like, this is really cool. I love this idea.
Yeah. And it's not a permanent disruption. It's like, it's like a small EMP for lightsabers, and even his was effect, right? Like his isn't even immune to that effect, which was a really cool thing for Master Soul to use against him later on.
Yeah, it's like just enough to kind of add some creativity in the fight, because we've seen so many lightsaber battles on screen now. It's kind of hard to make them original in a way, right? You can add different energy into it. You can add different stakes to the battle, but it is just kind of like two glowing sticks hitting each other. Yeah. So I really appreciate that whatever team was tasked with really invigorating these type of combat, it worked great. I can't wait to see more of that in the future.
So two things. I love when Kimir and Soul were fighting in that courtyard at the end there, and like Soul puts his lightsaber up and uses the Force to like block all his stuff really fast. He's like, I gotta put this down real fast and use a move rather than sticking his hands out with the lightsaber in his hand. I thought that was interesting, like a different view. But whenever Kimir was in the forest on that wooded planet, and he like uses the Force to pull the guy like impales two people on one lightsaber because he pulled him into it.
That was the moment that made me text you.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I said like, I think it's episode 5. I was like, okay, some cool lightsaber stuff is happening here. Yeah. And that's kind of when my brain was like, okay, I think maybe I will make sure I tune in next week on this.
Yeah. Yeah. That was fun. Yeah. Kimir, the villain, obviously, very, I think, are we saying good things still? I have a lot of good things. I have some frustration. My frustration is
let's keep it to good. We'll keep it to good things, and then we'll shift to bad things, and then I think we just talk about maybe lore of Star Wars.
Perfect. So good things. I really enjoyed I guess it's like kind of a murder mystery, but not a murder mystery in this kind of like. The Jedi are not good people, and you see that in this episode, right? We can't tell the senators we have to keep this on the low key. They're they're flawed people in the universe, or flawed, I guess, aliens, whatever, in the universe, and they're just kind of trying, and that was good because you get to see the downfall of the Jedi later, right? They got complacent. They were like, we can hide everything, we can do it. So that was interesting to see in this less politics. I really enjoyed. This is hard. I'm trying to figure out the words to put this. You have anything else you can go off of? I enjoyed this show. I did. I have more good than bad.
More good than bad. I loved Soul as well.
Yeah.
Lee Zhang-jai. I don't know exactly how you pronounce his name.
Squid Games.
I didn't I knew he was a great actor from Squid Games, but I did watch Squid Games, the dubbed version of it. So I felt like I was watching all the performances through the layers of somebody else dubbing it. But he was great. He was fantastic. His his performance was so engaging. And then when he died at the end, I was like, oh man, they just keep doing it. They just keep whacking these Jedis in this show. This is crazy. His performance was great. You could really feel. It's nice to see the Jedi portrayed in kind of a different way, and you have that amazing kind of not like speech, but you have that monologue from that one senator. I think it's in like the last episode or second to last episode, where he's just like, y'all are a bunch of cultists, you can't be trusted with all this power, sooner or later something's gonna go bad. I was like, yes, finally somebody is saying it. And he even like says the thing that kind of drives me crazy in a lot of Star Wars performances is every Jedi on the screen is so milquetoast boring. Like nobody ever has any personality, and it seems like they're always told or directed to play it that way. Like, no, Jedi, they're all monks, don't have any personality. I know this entire show revolves around Jedis being the main characters, but don't bring any energy to the screen. And he almost says that as well. It's like, you're all these monks that are just trying to be so like pious and put together, and it's just like, yes, I know, and I hate it. So it was nice to kind of see these Jedi break the mold every once in a while in this show.
Yeah. I would also say I give props to the main actress, Amanda Stenberg, who played both May and Osha. One actress played both characters, which is interesting because as the young girls, it was two different actresses. I don't know if they were sisters or not, because I think the younger girls look different. But it was, seeing one actress play both characters is good. Like it's hard to do that to pull that off. So I think she did a great job kind of playing both of those roles throughout this throughout the series as well. All the actors are great. The one thing I will say is funny to me. It's not like the young kid who was the Carrie-Anne Moss's apprentice, the Padawan. Whenever they showed him in either the second or third episode, and she's trying to kill him, and I'm like, they just gave him a bald wig, like a bald head and like a big beard. He still looks like he's like 13. I was like, they could have at least got a different actor for it, but it was pretty funny. Like, when you see him later, younger, you're like, oh, I see what they did. They just aged him up with prosthetics. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of leans maybe into the weakest part of the show for me, which is a little unfortunate because it's what everything revolves around in this season, is the inciting incident in a way of everything going wrong within this witches' coven, which sparks, the drive for all of the characters. And I don't know, maybe if I wasn't paying attention close enough, or I just blinked at the wrong moment, but like, what started this entire settlement to explode? Like, is it really just one character drops a lamp and this place is so sensitive that everyone dies? I just didn't understand what was happening or what was going on. I was like, this just seems like a Rube Goldberg machine of unfortunate events that seemed very hard for me to believe.
Yeah. It escalated quickly, didn't it? Escalated very quickly.
Yeah.
From the fire. Now, I couldn't tell if it was like maybe memory, like how long did that really take at the end of the day? Like, if they're showing like partial memory from each one, like, was it like like they took forever to take down the Wookiee? But now seeing the Wookiee Jedi go berserk on them was pretty crazy. Like in was it episode 6 or 7?
Yeah, that was fun. Like the few times that I appreciated like a flashback episode. So it's like things were going wrong, but I was just like, everything hinges on everybody dying in this altercation that Osha cares about. So it's like her sister May had to break the door so nobody could escape, but it's not like they're locked down in a prison cell. we see people scale the walls on the outside to get in.
Yeah.
So I don't see why it's so hard to escape. And then there's explosions, and it's all from, like I said, one little lamp. I could see that being enough of a scary thing to scare May that she would need to, or Osha, to get away. You know, she needs to escape that room. I could see the fire overtaking a single room, but to have things snowball so quickly, I was just like, oh, this is like a really rickety foundation for all of this stuff to happen, which was a little bit unfortunate for me when I'm thinking about the negatives.
I don't think that doesn't bother me too much. I think, to me, what I think it is the things I enjoy. I love the witches come, their mother. I don't know what the actress's name was who played their mom at all. I don't have it pulled up here, but that was the mother was really understanding. I'm like, this is great. It's like, there's someone in these child's life who, like, yes, I want the best for you, even if it's not the best for the witches. I thought that was awesome. That was a really good message to put in there, rather than just like, oh, you have to do everything that way, because that's opposite of what the Jedi are like, right? You have to do everything our way. But the ending part of this, the ending episode was so rushed to me. I'm like, there's a lot here, and I feel like, you know, they're saving some stuff for season 2, which may or may not happen. We don't know. That I was just like, boy, I really wish this was more buttoned up, because we don't find out that Kimir is Vanestra's old Padawan until the end, right? And then nothing happens of that. I did like the flashback episode, was that 7? The Rashomon style episode, where it's like the events happen.
So, yeah.
The events happen, but they actually happen from a different perspective. So you see everyone's perspective of the events rather than just Osha's. I thought that was good. That could have been, I guess, truncated a little bit. We saw the same thing over a lot. I'm like, yeah, we get it. We know the stuff that looked the same. So, but everything at the end just felt rushed, and that really put me, like, everything up to the last episode. I'm like, this is great. How are they going to wrap this up in an episode, though? And that really kind of put me off to feel like, oh, there's a big turn, and the sisters technically, like, at the beginning, one's bad and one's good, and then they flip places, but I didn't really feel like that flip was completely done all the way yet by the end of the show. So,
well, also the flip practically didn't make a whole lot of sense, in a way of, why was May not allowed to stay with her sister, right? I just don't understand why they needed to split them up. It makes a more interesting story to split the sisters up, have them kind of change sides, and, you know, the story next season is them trying to reunite, or at least it gives Osha some breathing room to kind of find herself and become her own Force user, whether that's for good or bad. But there was no practical reason that the sisters needed to split up. The whole show was about them coming back together, and I just don't understand. Okay, I guess May is not quite cut out to train with the Sith, but it's not like there's like a clear doctrine anywhere that says like, oh no, you can't just like chill and hang out, you know?
Right. I think it's an implied like, hey, you didn't complete your task, but your sister found out how to do it, like how to kill without touching it. The message for the sisters part was the weakest part of this, because there is a message there. It's kind of teased like, oh, May, who is the evil one, knows how to use the Force. She can block. Osha doesn't want to use the Force, so she hides behind everybody, right? And then come the end, you know, Kimir's trying to say, you have to kill them without touching them. Well, that's using the Force to choke them out, is what he meant at the end of the day. May doesn't tap into the Force anymore to do anything, but Osha gives in to the evil, the dark side of the Force, and does it. So, but like that is, as you mentioned, not explicitly explained. It is like very lightly, like a dash of like powdered sugar over this whole thing, and like, but that was like really what the story should have been about. Was like their flip, like, oh, Soul has a thing for Osha, and it's like, I want to raise her and give her like a good childhood and train her to be a Jedi. But at the end, it really should have been May who was the Jedi and Osha was the evil one. And they got it wrong, but they didn't really give us that story. It felt like it was like, we want to tell you this, but we're going to half-ass it until the end. And then by her killing it, she gets to be the dark side user, and May then never really uses the Force. And I'm like, well, should have used the Force.
It's like, I love the concepts. It's all a very interesting story. I love the angle that we're taking here. It just some crucial components felt a little half-baked to me, which is a little unfortunate. But obviously, like we said at the top of the review, does not equate to like a 3.9 out of 10 at all. People are out here being crazy. But this does bring me to the last thing I wanted to talk about in a bigger conversation, which is Star Wars lore in general, because I cannot find the divining rod that points me to the appropriate direction. The most thing that we can compare this to is right now, which makes a lot of sense, is the MCU. Like, talk about adapting, lore to the big screen. But the MCU has already shown that, like, well, we are taking inspirations from comics and we're coming up with our own origin, right? We are building off of our previous films and building out our own world. But Star Wars is kind of like a different beast in a way of, like, they're establishing lore in video games. They're establishing lore in, like, one-off comments in prequels where I kept seeing people talk about, oh, somebody said that we hadn't heard of the Sith in like 1,000 years, but all of a sudden we have a Sith 100 years ago. Like, what's going on here? And I think maybe people are taking things characters are saying a little too literally on screen when it comes to that. But at the same time, this is a lore problem in general in Star Wars. When Osha was what I guess learned, it was called bleeding the Kyber crystal at the end of the show. People like, oh wow, finally we get to see this on the screen. This is great. I love this. But I was like, what do you mean see it? Like, this is new to me. Like, what else was I supposed to be indulging in to know that this was a concept? And I guess it happens in a video game. I think is where it happens.
Well, you can visually see it in Star Wars Survivor, and I've Jedi Survivor, and I put that here in the link, the scene from that. But it is mentioned in the Ahsoka novel from 2016. Now, I will tell you, I disagree, because Star Wars is thousands of years. You can't tell the entire... It's not the MCU. You can't tell everything. MCU is 8 years, 10 years at best. And this is thousands and thousands of years, different galaxies, different planets. Disney's problem, and I was there in Chicago when they killed the Star Wars Expanded Universe, right? They wanted to go and do this thing with, like, oh, we want to tell our own story for our movies, and the problem with that came down to that we have to kill all the old stuff along the way. And when they killed all that old stuff along the way, all these books, they already exist. They called it legacy novels, and they've existed for years. But the problem, that kind of comes with that is that people have them, they own them, they wanna play with them. I've read a bunch of legacy novels, so when they kill it, that's the point, and they started telling new stuff. So they're still borrowing from some of that stuff, and then they're also not borrowing from it, because there is a Darth what's his name, Plagueis is in this. Did you notice Darth Plagueis was in this as well?
Yeah, I was like, who's this spooky little goblin guy in the cave? And then, of course, the internet lets me know it's Darth Plagueis, and I was like, why is that familiar? And I had to remember, like, who's the guy that Palpatine is talking about when he's, like, trying to, like, woo over Anakin to the dark side when they're at, like, that play or something? Is that the tale of Darth Plagueis, or who's he chatting about? I don't even remember. That's the thing. I can't keep track of all of this lore. But I need to figure out exactly how any of this works in this world, where all this Star Wars stuff comes together, because it can be a little bit confusing. Like, when we're talking on the Marvel side of things, like, these comic books have been established just over decades, and I guess you can kind of say the same thing with Star Wars, but everything's kind of been novelized over the years, and then they killed it, so it's just this different beast that is really hard for me to keep track of. And we talk about this all the time with Star Wars, where I desperately need a Star Wars timeline to rely upon, because I don't know when anything is happening. And we anchor this show a little bit with the current Star Wars, because at the very end we get to see, the top of Yoda's head, and I guess we have to assume it's Yoda. Like, who else really would it be? But we at least are anchoring it in some way, but the lore, what I'm trying to get to at the end of the day is the lore is not really solidified in any way. And for me as a Star Wars fan, I almost don't really care what they do. I'm only paying attention at the end of the day to what they show me on the screen in these movies or Disney Plus shows. I pretty much consider like any like comic book or novel or video game like additive. It shouldn't be like required lore for me to dive into these things, especially since video games sometimes take 40 plus hours to finish. So what I'm trying to say is like they can do whatever they want in these TV shows. They can bleed all these kyber crystals if they want. They can establish all of this lineage of these other Darth Sidious style people, Darth Plagueis or whatever. Do whatever you want with them. I'm not going to be the type of person that complains about it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Darth Plagueis, wise, he was brought up in the Phantom Menace, and my headphones. I'm going to be honest, people, my headphones died, and I didn't hear a lot of what Mike just said, so I might be reiterating myself a little bit here. But you know, Darth Plagueis the Wise is cool to me to kind of get that city stuff. But like, it was fun to see, and I'm glad it wasn't like the post credit scene. To be honest, like the Yoda thing was, because I was telling a friend of the show, Brian, I'm like, we're gonna see Yoda in here. He's alive somewhere. We're gonna see him at the end, and it was fun to see him. But like, all the wind was taken out of my sails in this last episode because it felt so rushed, and like, I wanted more of the Star Wars lore. I wanted to see this duality. Like, they always talk about the duality of Star Wars, the Force dyads. Even the twins were created from Force, right? Like Anakin has been, said they were made. Now they were made with witchcraft that was very unpracticed, not very focused. So they're similar to Anakin, but like, what does it mean to have two people in one? I guess one person in two bodies for the Force mean? At the end of the day, like, what does it imply for the lore overall? Now, I will tell you the cool thing about the Acolyte again is that all this lore doesn't matter because guess what? They're going to be dead by the time we get to the Phantom Menace, and they will literally kill off most of them. I think Yoda's the only character. Yoda, Ki Adi Mundi. He was in like episode 3 or 4. The guy with the big head looks like cone heads. He's the guy who says we haven't seen the Sith for 1,000 years, actually, and then he's in this movie or in this show. Now, mind you, the people who met the Sith, now you can tell they kept the, I guess, Dark Force users. They didn't really. He's like, you're a Sith. He's like, some would call me that, but I don't think he was a Sith. I think he was like, I'm just a Dark Force user. Now, my favorite theory that never came to fruition out of this, Mike, is a great theory, is that Manny Jacinto's character was one of the original Knights of Ren. Because does he not look like Kylo Ren in the Knights of Ren later on? Like in the later Star Wars stuff? Like with all their masks and how they're like, kind of like, wearing all the black and like the shirtless, like ripped looks along the way? Like, wouldn't that have been cool to say?
I could see a little bit of that, yeah.
Like, hey, you're not Sith, but you're under this other, I guess, band of knights that are kind of going on. And a lot of fans online said that as well. I've read the Kylo Ren book where they introduce him to a Knight of Ren who looks just like Kimira's character. So it's like, oh man, the parallels are there. So if we get a season 2, Mike, I would love for them to just wrap this up in season 2. I don't think we need 3 seasons or more of this show to continue. What do you think?
I guess it just depends on what they think. No. Osha's overall, goal is. They're kind of building her up to be like this big key moment in the Star Wars universe. Like, is she going to do something that, creates this Sith domino effect that affects the movies in the future? I don't know, but I'm kind of curious. Is Disney going to look past all the trolls and push forward and make more of this? Because the critical response seems to be good. Of people that actually watched it.
Oh above average. I wouldn't, which is good. I would say, people. No one hates Star Wars more than a Star Wars fan, as I like to say. So a lot of people have set out expectations for themselves, but the problem, with the Acolyte was like they can't. They can do a lot with what they want because it is new territories, uncharted territories we mentioned. Now, with this being the High Republic, Mike, and I know you are, I wouldn't say you struggle with the Star Wars timeline, but it is confusing for you. Did you feel like you knew where this was placed appropriately
Well,
in terms of Star Wars stuff.
This was helpful because it was so far in the past. I didn't really have to worry about, what had or hadn't happened yet, right? I just knew, Luke's not born yet. The prequels haven't transpired. I don't know what's going on with the Trade Federation. It just seems to be more of like, there's more Jedi leading up to this idea of the Jedi Council that we see later in the prequels.
Another thing, the Trade Federation made a reappearance in here for the first time. I don't know if you mentioned that or not. And they didn't use the offensive, Eastern accents that they used from the Phantom Menace, where they had the Asian accents on the Trade Federation. They actually used real people.
Progress.
Yeah, they use real people because of I wouldn't say backlash from that, but a lot of people are like, that's really offensive. So that was nice. But did you get a good vibe early on without someone telling you? Do you feel that this is very much a prequel to Star Wars? Because I think if you just went in and was kind of weren't paying attention, where does this take place?
To me, it feels prequel-ish. But if I use the mom barometer, the parent barometer, they're not going to have any idea. Yeah. Like the Star Wars has so far pushed outside of like a coherent timeline that any just kind of casual watcher, they're going to have no idea. I would not expect anyone to try to peg this where it's supposed to be.
Because, Obi-Wan was set in the middle of the movies. That was the last one. Ahsoka was with Ahsoka and the Mandalorian are the closest to Book of Boba Fett. Obi-Wan was before. The Acolyte. Skeleton Crew exists in the Mandalorian era coming up. So I would love to see more High Republic stuff. I think this era of High Republic is great. As you mentioned, no one is safe. Actress Daphne Keane, who played X-23 in Logan, was the I called her Spock because she was that white-faced girl with the horns who was like very matter of fact. I was like, oh, so she got killed off. I can't. What's the I don't know who the actor's name was.
Yord,
but I don't know the actor's name. But Yord, he was like the smarmy like teacher's pet. Like I want to be the best Jedi ever. And they were just both. I wouldn't say unceremoniously killed off, but like it was very shocking at the least.
Yes, they were dispatched.
Yeah, and so were the main four. I don't know what I feel about the little tracker, like the little groundhog-looking dude that ran around. Like, where was his allegiances in this? He prevented.
I don't know. He's out there living. He's living his own life out there.
Yeah, he's just like kind of, but he prevented Sol from taking down May, and then he's like telling all the Jedi where they are. I couldn't figure out what that dude was doing. I guess does he work? Is he food motivated? Does he work for treats? But
yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. But anyway, anything else Star Wars related, Mike? I think Skeleton Crew's the next thing, and I rumor is it's this fall. We'll keep you guys posted. But anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just come back, stay subscribed, keep listening. We'll be talking about Star Wars until the heat death of the universe.
That's right, and hopefully. Again, Star Wars Celebration, they don't usually do San Diego Comic-Con, so maybe D23 they might have something, right, since this is technically a Disney thing as well. We'll let you know. But if people want to know more about the show, what we're doing, when they come back next week for our 2-episode double header, because, it's a review and a San Diego Comic-Con week, Mike, where can they get that at?
Well, all you have to do is visit superheroslate.com. This is all the place that we host our show, get our awesome show notes. If you want to check out those Wolverine links while they're still up, you can get those over at superheroslate.com. Chris, if people want to follow us, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or Video Game Systems of the same name, because I'm going to be playing the hell out of Marvel Rivals during this closed beta for the next 2 weeks. They are doing Twitch drops. Are you familiar with Twitch drops, Mike, for this? I was going to mention it at the top show. I forgot. So if you watch Twitch for a certain number of hours, you can get rewards and that are linked to your accounts. And one of the things that they do is codes for this. So if you watch some Twitch for people playing, you can get some codes. I'm not one of those people. I'm not a Twitcher. But I'll be playing that game like it's somebody's business. But people know, other than me, if they want to follow the show, get the show notes, see all these links for the YouTube stuff, where they can get that stuff at.
Yeah, well, if you wanted to get any of that stuff, head on over to our website, superheroslate.com. If you want to read any anything else that we're doing. You were on Apple. The end of the show has fallen off the rails, Chris.
Well,
we
don't normally go an hour and a half these days, and I know you've got a lot going on, so I appreciate it.
Yes, at the end of the day, superheroslate.com. That's all we need. That's all we got to do. Stay subscribed. Come back next week. We'll have headphones charged.
Yes.
We'll have lots of stuff to talk about.
I got these new headphones for the show, and I tell you what, I regret going wireless. But anyway.
Oh my gosh! All right. Well, we love y'all. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye. Bye.